Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I had a bunch of people ask me about the Gwyneth Paltrow trial as it was happening. And then, of course, it resolved itself yesterday. And so I did not follow the trial that closely. In other words, I didn't watch it every day. It's another one of those televised trials you could have watched every day if you wanted to. I didn't want to, so I didn't watch it. But Gwyneth Paltrow has won that case. So if you don't know about this, Gwyneth Paltrow was skiing a couple years ago out in Utah. And somewhere along the line, she and another skier collided on the side of a hill. And the other skier said that he was injured because of Gwyneth Paltrow's negligence. Gwyneth Paltrow says, no, I was injured by him and his negligence, although her injuries weren't anywhere near what he was claiming. But she said, look, this guy ran into me and it hurt me, but no big deal. But he says, no, she ran into me and I want a lot of money from her. So he sued her. And so that case went to trial and just resolved. And like I said, she won. So I got asked quite a bit about this, so I'll talk about it. Ali Rosenblum wrote this version for CNN, but it's all over the news. Gwyneth Paltrow has prevailed in the civil trial. It's a lawsuit relating to a ski accident happening back in 2016. It happened back in 2016. A jury in Utah found that Paltrow, an Oscar-winning actress and the founder and CEO of Goop, not liable, and ruled in her favor in her counterclaim against the man who sued her. And by the way, that's going to wind up costing that man quite a bit. And I will talk about that also. The man who sued her is a retired optometrist. And he filed a lawsuit saying he got lasting injuries he sustained when the two collided at Deer Valley Resort in Park City, Utah. The jury in the civil trial deliberated for a little over 2 hours before returning their verdict in favor of Paltrow, who testified that it was the optometrist who skied into her as she was downslope from him. And there is a lot of discussion, and I'll admit I'm not a skier, but the question is who has the right of way on a ski slope? And it is the person who's downslope from the other one. Because, number one, you're looking forward, hopefully. And so the person in back can see in front of them and can see the person in front of them, whereas the person in front can't necessarily see in back, that kind of thing. And I believe that's similar, and the surfers in my audience can correct me on this if I'm not correct, but I believe it's also similar to the rules with surfing, although the slopes in surfing aren't quite as long as the slopes in skiing. So the trial started March 21st. The optometrist's attorney asked the jury to consider his client's brain injury and life expectancy, and he had suggested an award of $3.2 million. Now, the complaint simply said damages in excess of $300,000. And one of the big arguments that was going on in the trial was what kind of injuries this man suffered. Because he said, and also his witnesses testified, that he had suffered a brain injury from a concussion sort of injury. And they said that this had a permanent effect on his life. Of course, the other side had experts who said, no, there's no such thing with respect to this man. And that's one of the things they were fighting about that the jury had to resolve. Paltrow testified that the optometrist ran into her. She sought and was awarded $1 in damages. And then it says, plus attorney fees in her counterclaim. Now, that's an interesting question, and I've got to just come back to that because it's not as straightforward as that simply says. After the verdict was read, Paltrow released a statement through her attorneys. I felt that acquiescing to a false claim compromised my integrity. I am pleased with the outcome, and I appreciate all the hard work of the judge and the jury, and thank them for their thoughtfulness in handling this case. Her attorney also released a statement. We are pleased with this unanimous outcome. And by the way, a unanimous outcome is actually cool because in Utah, on a civil case, and in many states, you do not need to have a unanimous outcome to win in a lawsuit. So if there's 8 people on the jury, 7 might do it, 6 might do it. There you go. So we are pleased with this outcome and appreciate the judge and jury's thoughtful handling of the case. Gwyneth has a history of advocating for what she believes in. This situation was no different, and she'll continue to stand up for what is right. Meanwhile, the optometrist spoke to reporters outside of the court, and he was asked that when the trial ended, Gwyneth walked over, and she leaned over, she said something to him, and then she walked away. And reporters didn't hear what she said. So they asked him what Gwyneth had said to him. He said that when Paltrow was seen placing her hand on his shoulder after the verdict was read, she said to him, "I wish you well." And I've got to give her credit for that because there are often very hard feelings during litigation. And I've seen people say worse. I've seen people who snapped. And the man appears to have understood this. In other words, he didn't turn around and go get away from me and slap her hand. She leaned over and said, "I wish you well." He said that he believes she thinks she has the truth, but asserted that he did not present any falsehoods during the trial. So he basically is saying, look, she has her version of what happened. I've got my version. I told my version to the court. She told her version to the court. So he's not accusing her of being a liar. And he's trying to say that he's not one either, in case anybody's going to suggest that. But he's basically saying, look, we were both there. There was a collision. And so, I filed the lawsuit based on how I saw it. And she counterclaimed based on how she saw it. And so here we are. The optometrist lawyer said that she has newfound appreciation for Paltrow when responding to a question regarding the media coverage and of interest in the trial. If she has to deal with all of this on a daily basis, I can't even imagine. And I feel for her on that, she added, after telling reporters that she was not starstruck. So they asked her, were you starstruck? Before the jury was sent to deliberate, the optometrist's attorney rejected claims that the optometrist was seeking fame and attention by bringing his case to court. Part of him will always be on that mountain, the attorney said in closing arguments. We hope that you will help bring Terry home off that mountain with a fair verdict for today. Meanwhile, Paltrow's attorney, in closing, said it's an issue of right and wrong, that it would be easy for Paltrow to simply write a check and be done with it, but said that would be wrong. It's actually wrong that he hurt her and that he wants money from her, he told the jury. He added later, he's entitled to be here today, but he's not entitled to be rewarded for hurting her. One of her attorneys in his portion of closing referred back to the opposing side's comment saying, Ms. Paltrow wants him off the mountain too, but she should not be responsible for the cost of that. Paltrow testified and told the jury the collision happened on the first day of a trip to Deer Valley that she was on with her kids and her then boyfriend and his 2 children. She testified that she was skiing along and that 2 skis came in between hers and it forced her legs apart. She heard a grunting noise when she felt a body pressing against her back before they both crashed down together. So she says she's skiing along and all of a sudden somebody comes along behind her. And the first realization she has that someone's behind her is when her skis are being forced apart by skis from back there. She said she did not ask about the condition of the optometrist after they collided, but claimed that she stayed in the mountain long enough for him to say that he was okay and to stand up. So they fell down. She says they got up and, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay." Skied away. That's my interpretation of that sentence. So during his testimony, the optometrist reiterated claims that it was Paltrow who skied into him. He said, "I got hit in my back so hard and right at my shoulder blades and felt like it was perfectly centered. And the fists and the poles were right at the bottom of my shoulder blades. Serious smack. I've never been hit that hard. All I saw was a whole lot of snow." So the interesting thing about this story is it's almost impossible for both of them to be right in their description of it. Okay, I've seen people testify before where they're discussing a collision between 2 cars at an intersection. And you're looking at it going, I think they're both telling the truth, and I think they're both right. But here, literally, the guy says, "This is me," and Gwyneth Paltrow hit me. Gwyneth Paltrow says, "No, this is me," and the guy hit me. And so the hill goes like this, okay? So there's only so many ways this could actually happen. So the optometrist disputed suggestions that he sued Paltrow to exploit her fame and wealth. "I thought, I'm not into celebrity worship," he told the jury about learning she was the other skier. Jurors also heard from a number of expert witnesses, including medical witnesses, but also the man's daughters, and testimony from ski resort employees. Testimony from Paltrow's children was also read to the jury during the trial. And so I know that in this case, there was a lot of discovery taken, depositions given, and so on. And so they actually took depositions before trial. And so that's how you'd get the testimony of the kids, for instance. They were probably deposed about what they had seen. And they thought, well, instead of dragging them out here and making them testify, we can just simply read portions of their testimony to the jury. And that happens. But one of the things that I do know that came out here that's going to be dissected quite a bit is that after the incident on the ski slope, the man, the optometrist, apparently emailed some people and said that I'm famous, in essence, because the accident on the ski slope was in the news. And the tone of those emails, much was made of that with respect to the jury, because now they put the emails up in a courtroom and say, isn't it true you sent that email to your friends shortly after the collision with Gwyneth on the ski slope? And the jury can sit there and read it. And that will come back to haunt you because, of course, when he wrote that email, he wasn't planning on showing it to a jury. And a lot of people don't realize until later, and they're sitting in an attorney's office, and the attorney says, by the way, just to let you know that when you sue for these kind of injuries, they're going to be able to dig into your story quite a bit, meaning they can send you to a doctor for an independent medical exam. They're going to get to read all your medical records. They're going to get to depose your doctors about stuff. And so, don't think that you can just go into court and go, I've been injured, and they're going to take your word for it. But the other thing that caught my eye here is it says that he sued her for damages in excess of $300,000. He asked for 3.2, but he got zero. She counterclaimed, meaning that he hit me, I got hurt, but she said all I want's $1. And she's doing this to prove a point. And it reminds us, of course, of Taylor Swift's lawsuit where somebody sued her, and she said, look, I'm the person who's in the being wronged here. So she countersued. But she also said, I'm not trying to ruin anybody's life. I'm not trying to make money here because, quite frankly, Taylor Swift has got money. She goes, I'm simply trying to prove a point. So give that guy $0, give me $1, just to prove a point. And so that's what Gwyneth Paltrow did here. In fact, during the trial, she was asked, did you do that because you learned that move from Taylor Swift? But it's a common thing in law. And so the jury came back and gave Gwyneth $1. So apparently, back there, the 8 jurors got together and said, look, the guy doesn't get anything. Gwyneth actually is the one who got hurt here. At least she's not at fault, and the other guy is. So let's award her $1. But it says here she was awarded $1 in damages plus attorney fees in her counterclaim. And people ask me about this all the time. They say, Steve, if I file a lawsuit, I can just ask for attorney fees, and if I win, I get them. Well, you're only allowed to ask for and recover things that are legally recoverable. And at common law, in a simple negligence claim, in most states, if I sue you for negligence and I win, I just get what I get from you in damages, but I pay my attorney fees and you pay yours. But there are a couple mechanisms whereby you can get your attorney fees. One of which is it is a fee-shifting statute. The Lemon Law says if you file a Lemon Law claim and you prevail, the manufacturer's got to pay your attorney fees on your behalf to pay your attorney. However, there's a couple other ways that you can get these. One of which is, in many places, you can do what's called an offer of judgment. And I don't know if they did one here or not, but I'm just giving you an example. So let's suppose you sued me. You sued me and you had a valid claim against me. And you sued me for $1,000. And I woke up one morning and said, something I just realized. I actually do owe that guy money. I owe him $500. I do. I owe him $500. So I have my attorney contact your attorney and go, something? I do owe you $500. And you go, no, you owe me $1,000. No, it's $500. So I can do an offer of judgment, which I file with the court. And I say, I have offered to settle this case in exchange for $500. And you have the right to accept that. And the case ends and you get $500. Now, in many places, under the offer of judgment rules, if we go to court and you don't better your position, let's suppose we go to court and a jury comes back and goes, you get $500. You just lost. Because I offered you $500, You turned it down, and the rule says that if you don't better your position, oftentimes by 10% or more, then you just wasted the court's time, and you wasted my time, and you wasted my attorney fees. And so the offer of judgment is designed to eliminate cases where the parties actually know what's being fought over, to keep one party from just litigating for the fun of it. So an offer of judgment is one way that it can be done. So I don't know if they made an offer of judgment in this case, because obviously the offer of judgment wouldn't have to be that large because the guy got 0. And so any offer of judgment that was under the rules acceptable would have meant that he turned down a better offer than he got because he got 0. So that's one way. There's a couple other ways it can happen. Michigan used to have a thing called case evaluation, where you'd go appear in front of a panel of case evaluators, and they would assign a dollar value to the case, and they say, here's what you think the case is worth. And if you rejected that number, then you could also be held liable for case evaluation sanctions, which were, in essence, the attorney fees of the other side from that point going forward. That rule's changed recently, but it was designed to operate the same way. But I know other states have got rules like that. So I'm not sure what theory they're using to get her attorney fees paid, but there apparently is one, because every news outlet I've seen talking about this has said, and her attorney fees will get paid. And so if that's the case, that optometrist might be out a bit of money going forward, because you're talking about a week-long civil trial with a jury, and then all the things that led up to it. And that's going to get expensive. So there you go. Gwyneth Paltrow has won the ski collision case. In case you're curious, I'm neutral about her. She's been in some very good movies that I like. Sliding Doors is one. I like Shakespeare in Love. I think it's a great movie. But there's been some others that, and I'm not a consumer of her products. Let's put it that way. Her movies, yes, not her products. So there you go. From CNN, a lot of people sent it. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. You don't have to go anywhere to get somewhere.